All right, today we're going to tackle a formal White House document, Executive Order 14258. Now I know, that sounds pretty technical, but it's actually a huge update in a story a lot of us have been following pretty closely. So in this explainer, we're going straight to the source material to figure out what this order really says.
So, the big question on everyone's mind, right? What is the latest with the whole TikTok ban situation? Well, this executive order gives us a pretty clear answer, at least for now. Let's dive into the details of what the president actually did here.
Okay, so to break this all down, here's how we're going to walk through it. First, we'll talk about this idea of a presidential pause button. Then we'll look at what it means for the law to be on hold. After that, we'll get into the Attorney General's new to-do list, a big question of authority, and finally the big one, what happens next?
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. The easiest way to think about Executive Order 14258 is just like this. The president has effectively hit a giant pause button on a process that was already moving forward. So before we go any further, just a super quick refresher on what an executive order even is. It's a really powerful tool. It's basically a formal signed directive from the president that carries the force of law for the federal government. And in this case, it's being used to control how a specific law is enforced.
The key phrase here, the thing that makes this whole order work, is enforcement delay. And this is a super important distinction. This is a delay, not a cancellation. The original law is still there, on the books. This order just puts everything on ice for a while. It's a temporary freeze on actually enforcing it.
This timeline here kind of lays out how we got to this point. You can see the first delay kicked in back on January 20th. Then, on April 4th, this brand new order drops, and it pushes the deadline all the way out to June 19th, 2025. Okay, so what does putting the law on hold actually look like? What does this mean in the real world, day to day? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of it.
The order is super specific about this. It basically tells the Department of Justice to stand down. They can't enforce the act. They can't hand out any penalties for not complying. And this protection extends to everyone. You know, the app stores distributing it, the companies maintaining it, even folks pushing out updates. It's a total freeze on any federal action.
Okay, and this next part is a really big deal. The order is retroactive. What that means is it covers that whole period from the first delay, starting way back on January 19th, right up until this new order was signed. It's essentially a get-out-of-jail-free card for that entire window of time.
So, that brings us to our third part. This order isn't just about stopping things. It's about starting new things, too. It actually hands the Attorney General a very clear to-do list to make this whole delay official and legally tight.
And that to-do list has three main jobs. First, the AG has to issue official written guidance, basically put it all on paper. Second, they have to send out letters to all the providers saying, hey, you're in the clear, you have no liability here. And third, and this one is huge, the AG's job is to go out and actively defend the president's exclusive authority to do all this.
And that third step, defending the president's authority, leads us straight into our next section, because this order raises a really fascinating question about power. Who's really in charge of enforcing this law?
The order does not mince words on this. Just take a look at this line right from Section 1D. Attempted enforcement by the states or private parties represents an encroachment on the powers of the executive. I mean, that's about as direct and forceful as it gets. So what you're seeing here is a really clear line being drawn in the sand. On one side, you have federal enforcement, which the order says belongs only to the Attorney General. And on the other side, any attempt by states or private groups to enforce it is explicitly blocked. It's a major statement about federal power. All right, so we've covered the pause, what it means, and the power struggle behind it. That leaves one last big question. What happens now? Because this order really just reset the clock, and it is definitely ticking again. So if there's one thing to remember from all of this, it's this date, June 19th, 2025. That is the new D-Day, the new deadline. When that day hits, this whole delay is officially over. Unless, of course, another action is taken before then. And that's really the main takeaway from this entire explainer. This order is just a pause. It's a temporary timeout. It is absolutely not a permanent solution. The underlying law, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, is still fully intact, just waiting for that clock to run out. Which leaves all of us with this final question, right? Is this whole thing just a delay? You know, kicking the can down the road? Is it creating time to negotiate some kind of deal? Or is it just setting up a new, more final deadline? For now, we don't know for sure. But what we do know is that the clock is ticking once again,